Hello friend, this is Ryan Hicks of TalkToProfit.com, and today I want to talk to you about improving each and every day and setting fair expectations for yourself. I've seen this happen in many people who start down the path of being a high performance person, a successful person, and they'll have some days, maybe even a few days in a row where they don't view their progress as good as it was the previous days. And so they start beating themselves up. And this is a subtle way of self-sabotage that people don't recognize, because there may be a real measurable lack of progress compared to the previous days. But instead of just realizing not every day is going to be peak performance, that's why there is peak and then there's normal. If your peak was normal, then it wouldn't be peak. So sometimes you're going to be just ultra performing at the highest levels, and some days it just may not be as good as the previous day. That's all right. What you want to look at is the trajectory. Is it a steady progress ahead and upward? Or is it just lateral and just barely going and maybe even going down? Now, we're not talking about one day. You could have one bad day. You don't have to beat yourself up and talk about how you're a failure now and you just can't succeed and start self-sabotage. Set some fair expectations for yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Don't hurt yourself. Don't diminish yourself and drag yourself down into actual failure just because you had a day or two that wasn't at the level you wanted to be. It's all right. Be fair to yourself. You wouldn't beat up an employee who maybe had a few bad days where they weren't performing as well. Maybe a salesman that wasn't getting the sales they normally get. You would encourage them. You'd reinforce their skills and how great they were doing in the past, and you know what they can achieve and that they can do even better things. But yet sometimes when it comes to ourselves, it can be easy to start getting in that trap of beating ourselves up, talking ourselves down. You have to get back to that reinforcing of the practice of following Philippians 4:8. Of telling yourself good things, things that are lovely and of good report. If the previous day was not as good as you wanted to be, move on. You cast off the past. You don't look to the past. You look forward to the prize and keep moving forward. You don't stutter. You don't stumble. You don't sit down and whine and complain about how you didn't do as good as you could have. You just go forward. Now, if in those days that maybe you weren't performing as well as you could have, if there are things you can learn, lessons and things you can see that, oh, this pulled me away, this distracted me, I let myself do this, and you can tweak and perfect your habits and your performance, that's great. It could have just been that things just weren't going as smoothly as they could have, but there wasn't necessarily much you could have changed. And so it's just a matter of moving forward. You don't wallow around in it. You don't focus on it. You just recognize it for what it was, and you move forward knowing that you are always improving, always increasing, always going forward in the glory of God. And this can be different, a completely different way of approaching life compared to most people, because most people, we're taught from early on to beat ourselves up. We're given grades in school that either make us feel like we made some progress or make us feel like we've lost and we've failed. And we start to judge ourselves based on that and start demeaning ourselves. And a lot of people have this self-deprecation, which is funny, but it's not good and it's not right. And it's hindering to ourselves, and it actually causes us to perform at a worse level. You want to perform at peak levels, you can't be worrying about the past. I don't care if it was 5 minutes ago. You have to move forward. You have to make the progress you want to make. You have to do the things you want to do. And listen, if you want to have great progress and really be a high-performing person, you're going to have to do things differently than other people. You can't work the same hours. You can't do the same things. You can't be enraptured in the same novelties that they are raptured in. With sports and entertainment and all this nonsense that sucks away the life and the energy you have into fruitless endeavors. And what you also can't do is do like the average person does, which is when they didn't achieve what they wanted to achieve maybe that day, they beat themselves up. They talk themselves down. They literally end up talking themselves into giving up or to performing even worse the next day because they've focused on this bad day. They've wallowed around in it. They beat themselves up over it, and now they are going to perform at an even worse level the next day, or that's even if they even try the next day. Many people just give up. Well, I tried this high performance stuff, but it just didn't work for me, so I give up. I just can't do it, obviously. It's just not cut out for it. No, it's not true. You find the highest performing person on the planet, and they've had days that didn't go the way they wanted. They had days where they felt like they didn't achieve what they could have achieved. That's all right. And I'm not telling you this so you can just make excuses for bad performance. But if you have a couple days here and there, that's all right. Just move on. Now, if you have a pattern of a week or a month of bad day after bad day, then you have to wake up and recognize something is wrong in your habits. Something is wrong in what you're doing. Otherwise, you wouldn't keep getting these bad results. But if it's just a day, or just a day or two in a month, that's all right. Just move forward. You don't even need to look back at it, except for anything you could have learned from it. Take those lessons and move forward and don't do it again. Now, the only thing I need to go back to is if you have been having this as a repetitive pattern over weeks and months of just every day is the same failure, you're not accomplishing things you want to accomplish. Well, one, recognize, have you set goals that are unachievable for you that day? Sometimes people want themselves to fail. They want to feel like, I just can't do it. So they set goals that are so high that they can't attain them. And I'm not telling you to set low goals, but they set goals ridiculously high that can't happen, fail to reach them, of course, which is inevitable, and then beat themselves up over how they just can't do it, and you just don't understand. If you're doing that, stop, because that's just another form of self-sabotage. It's another way of giving yourself a break from high performance, of telling yourself, I just can't do it, and giving yourself an out to just talk your way out of it and say, well, I tried, but I just could never reach my goals, so I just can't do it. I'm just not cut out for it. That's a lie. If you have to, do the reverse. Set some small goals, attain them, and start ramping those goals up and getting them bigger and bigger. Sometimes people put things that maybe the goal needs to be a month out, and they put it for that day. And it's unfair to them because it's not going to happen. It sets unrealistic expectations, and it just ends up in them performing worse because they see the goal and they're nowhere closer to attaining it because it needs to be a goal for the end of the week to be completed, not for the end of the day. So make sure you're being fair to yourself in that regard, that you haven't set goals that are impossible in the time constraints that you've given them. That does not mean you set tiny goals. That does not mean you set easy goals and just weak, limited goals. But do understand and make sure you have the proper time constraints and you've given yourself enough time to be able to complete it. It might be hard and it might be a big stretch, but it's not impossible. If you're making $5,000 a month right now and you're setting a goal for by the end of the day to have $100,000 a month worth of income, that's not fair to yourself. It's probably not going to happen. Now, it could, but maybe that's a goal you need to set for a month out or even a year out. I don't know. But you have to be fair to yourself. You can't just set yourself these big goals that are going to lead to you failing to attain them, and then cause you to shrink back, cause you to perform at an even lower level and not attain even the small goals you could have reached because you've set this self-fulfilling prophecy of failure and then you beat yourself up over it and it just keeps you in that cycle of failure, not attaining and never making any real progress. My friend, you can do great things in this life and you need to have big goals set within a reasonable time frame. Understand that maybe it might look super hard. It might even look almost impossible. But you can do it, my friend. Don't give up. Don't give in. Don't relent. Don't set yourself up for failure either. And don't beat yourself up if a day didn't go as good as it could have. Just move forward and redouble your efforts and strive for that greater success the next day. And my friend, you're going to do it. You're going to have great success, and you're going to have a great abundance in life. My friend, I pray this is a blessing for you. May God bless you richly.